Am I going to tell them? No, I'm not going to tell them. I don't see the point of that. As a doctor, you would not tell a patient if they had cancer.
Hello and welcome back to Strength for Tomorrow Radio. My name is Stuart Thompson and thank you for joining me once again. If this is your first time, make yourself at home, put your feet up, get the kettle on. Today we're going to be delving into macro meals and meal plans. The good, the bad, the ugly. Now, this is an area of fitness and nutrition that has become very, very popular. It's a thriving area very, very lately, and we're going to look at it in a little bit more depth. Last week we talked to Kate Rooney of the On Legs agency, and she gave up so much of her time. She spent a long time talking to us and sharing a little bit about her attitude to health and fitness and her passion for strength training and for powerlifting that she's getting into. And yeah, thanks Kate for taking the time to do that. If you haven't checked out that interview, do check it out. It's worth hearing. Very inspirational, and it might just help you get off your bum and get strong. So yeah, put your feet up, enjoy this episode. So you might have noticed on the shelves of shops and things lately that there are things called macro meals or meal plans, some people like to call them. Now it's important to break down these terms and actually think about what we're actually talking about, define what we're talking about. But you might have some questions. Are they a fad? Do they work, in inverted commas? Are they worth the money, and should you be taking them? So we're going to try and answer some of those questions and lots more. Now, over the last few years, I've noticed meal plans have become more popularized, and I've had lots of questions, I guess, for clients who have taken them and other people. I'm interested to know what they think of them. I'm interested to know what their feedback is on them. And I have been reluctant to talk about them too much or to comment on them too much because, well, number one, I hadn't really looked into them, to be perfectly honest. And also I realise that not every meal planning company and every macro meal company is the same, so I don't want to assess them all as one, as if they were. Don't want to generalise, but I have to generalise to some extent because I don't want to name names or name brands or anything like that. But we will talk about some of the details, some of the pros, some of the cons, some things to think about, whether they are right for you. I personally have not signed up to any meal planning company per se. I have gotten some meals, like ready meals, as in stir fries and things like that. I do enjoy getting those, and I think they're a great tool in your arsenal. They're a great alternative if you can't cook things yourself. Now, again, depending on what you buy and what the makeup of that is and what the company is, but they tend to be a really good option if you're stuck and you need something quick. You can't be bothered, you don't have time to cook, and you just need something to fill you with good nutrition. They're a really, really good option. So I've asked clients before what they think, and I've had mixed reviews, shall I say. And I'm not going, as I said, I'm not going to name any companies. I'm not going to name any brands or libel myself, basically. But another disclaimer is I'm all about trying to solve people's problems from a fitness perspective, from a nutrition perspective, as a fitness and health professional. I wake up every day when I drive to work. I'm always trying to think of ways that I can help solve my clients' issues, to make the business better, to serve my clients better, and to serve prospective clients better. And I'm also a massive fan of small businesses and entrepreneurial ingenuity and ideas. And so I don't really want to comment on meal planning companies and things like that. I don't want to discredit them. I don't want to harm anyone's business. That's not the purpose of this. I want to give you an honest reflection, and I want to give you just the bread and butter of what we're actually talking about. I'm not out to tear anyone's reputation apart or anyone's business apart. I just want to give you the best thing as a consumer, as someone who possibly requires these products or thinks they require them. I want to give you the best information available so you can make the decision yourself. And my main intention is to enable you to solve your own fitness and nutrition problems long term, so not just short term, not just giving you a quick fix solution. So before we go any further, let's define what we were talking about, the terms, the narrow definition of what is a meal plan. So some people have different idea of what a meal plan is, but for the purposes of this podcast and going forward, we're going to refer to meal plans as diet sheets. Okay, they're basically diet sheets. It's like if a personal trainer you find it online, a free meal plan. It gives you basically a week's worth of meal suggestions, possibly recipes with it, but tells you what you need to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe even a month's worth, but it tells you exactly what you need to be eating. It'll probably give you the calories, probably give you the protein, carbs, and fats. That's what a meal plan is, okay? And lots of personal trainers give them out. I've tried to give out sample ones in the past to give people an idea. I'm not a fan of them per se. The reason is they tend to be quite restrictive. Now, we'll talk about that a little bit more later on, but that's what a meal plan is for the purposes of this podcast and the purposes of this discussion. Macro meals are what you will find in the shops. So they are a product. They are a meal that you will find that you're able to buy from any local shops. And there's several brands about these days. It's quite a busy marketplace. It's quite it's a hectic marketplace. It's very, very cutting, and there's a lot of competition. It's very competitive. So you'll see all sorts of different brands, all sorts of different focuses on them, and that's what that's what a macro meal is. And so now that we've got those kind of determined and confirmed and well defined, I think we can look at them in a little bit more detail. So as I said earlier, one of my concerns when it comes to being a health and fitness professional is thinking about the long term. So thinking about what I can do for you today that's going to benefit you, not just tomorrow, not just today, but a year's time, 5 years time. Even if you don't have any contact with me, even if you moved to a different country, what can I teach you, or what can I give you that you can take with you through the rest of your life, hopefully, that is useful and that's beneficial. One of my concerns with meal plans is that they teach you nothing. It's a bit like going to a restaurant. You go to a nice restaurant, go for a nice meal. Doesn't happen very often these days. Hopefully it's going to happen more often. But you enjoy a lovely meal. You're at this restaurant, but whenever you go home, you've got a full belly. You've like, oh, that was tasty. That was a great meal. Glad I went there. But you learn absolutely nothing about how the food was made. The chef didn't take you back behind the scenes and say, yeah, so you put this much oil in and you let that fry for fat. You're not taught anything about how the meal was made, and it's a bit like macro meals. It doesn't really do anything for you for the future. You've spent your money, got a lovely meal, you got a lovely experience, nice service, all the rest of it. But this essentially means you have to keep coming back for meal plans in order to control your weight, and that's the problem I see time and time again. Whenever some clients have tried these things, they have got onto them, and then they feel that they have to keep going to them. Their weight management is dependent upon something that they are having to purchase every week. And now you could be saying, well, Stuart, what's the difference between them going to you for personal training? That's a long term. Some people go to personal trainers for years, and you can say that's a long term thing. The difference for that is weight loss when it comes to the gym and comes to personal training. Weight loss is one of many byproducts. It's one of many outcomes. There are many other outcomes. Now there's form spotting. There's making sure you're doing the right technique, making sure that you're squatting correctly, you're deadlifting correctly, you're not going to hurt yourself, and that you're progressing at an appropriate rate, not too fast, not too slow. You're learning new skills, and you're pushing yourself that little bit. There's lots of other things that you can get from personal training, that you can get from coaching, that long-term relationships can help with. For example, I can shout better maybe at a long-term client rather than somebody who's just come through the door for 1 or 2 sessions. I have a better working relationship with them. I can have a bit of crack with them. They can slag me off, I can slag them off. It's a good back and forth relationship, and that's developed over sessions, weeks, months, even years. And as you can see with Kate, who was on the show last week, that's 4 years of a relationship built up in a coaching capacity. So we can slag each other off about our music choices, and nobody takes the hump, nobody takes offence, and storms off and gives me a bad review. But hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you understand that meal plans kind of make you dependent upon them. Unless you learn to adopt healthy habits for yourself, and you adopt skills, cooking skills, thinking about how you put your meals together, about your carbs, about your fats, about your proteins, and unless you change your mindset to sustain your success long term, you're gonna always be dependent potentially on buying macro meals. If you're buying macro meals or meal plans, indeed, from a personal trainer, if you're always getting meal plans from a personal trainer, but your nutrition is dependent and determined by that, that's a problem as well. My goal is always to try and encourage people to change little things about their own diet themselves, take responsibility for it themselves, and sometimes the more spoon feeding we do as trainers, the less successful clients can be. Another point is, what if you go on holidays? And that doesn't happen very often these days, but what if you're away, you're traveling, you're away with work, you're just out and about for a day trip, whatever it is, and you can't have your meal plan, you don't have a microwave, you don't have an oven you can stick it in, you haven't brought your cooler bag that you cooked it in beforehand, that's been kept cool so you don't get food poisoning. What if you don't have those things? What do you do then? What if you've only got a filling station, you're in a rush and you're traveling, you're driving, and you can only pull it at that filling station? What are you going to choose then? There's no macro meals then. You have to try and make the best of bad situations, and that's life. We don't always get as much sleep as we want. We don't always get as much food sometimes, or the best food that we would desire all the time. We're rushing out the door, kids busy, work, school, uni, whatever it is you're doing. There's always different things that are pulling you from pillar to post, and meal plans are fine when everything's good and you can get home and you can have those things. But what if you are out and about? How do you stay on track if you aren't able to purchase? What if the business went out? What if that business went bust? What if they just decided to pack it in tomorrow and the meals weren't available, or some legislation came in and they were upheld to a higher food standard than they currently are, and they just thought, you know what, it's not worth the hassle? What do you do then? If you haven't developed, as I said, those skills and learned how to put your meals together yourself, that's a problem. That's a problem long term. You cannot let your success be determined by the existence of a macro meal company. So one of the main purposes of macro meals is to help you get into a calorie deficit. So that's the primary way in which your body will lose fat. Your body basically dips into its current stores of energy, i.e. fat, and tries to use that to make up for the lack of energy that you are providing it through food, through nutrition. But the problem is that if you're in such an extreme calorie deficit, so if you're taking a macro meal and say they are about 400 calories per meal, say you do that 5 times a week, say you do it even all weekend as well. Now, that might be appropriate for one person, that amount of reduction in calories, but for somebody else that might be way too much. And what will happen is you will start to feel hungry, you'll start to feel like you're really deprived, and that will lead to binging. Sooner or later that leads to binging, and before you know it, over the weekend, say you cracking Friday night, get a takeaway, same on Saturday, and you start indulging, then you will start to increase your calories and put you up over the average of where you need to be if you want to be in a deficit. So that's another issue to think about. If you think about it, if you are pretty much anybody in the population of the usual demographic, 800 calories from your lunch and your dinner, so 400 calories per meal, that is nowhere near enough if you're in the vast majority of the population, unless you're elderly, unless you're physically disabled, or unless you're a child. Those are the demographics who do not maybe need as many calories. But if you're getting less than 1500 calories, for most people that's as low as it should really go, because it needs to support normal hormone function, every other function in your body, your immune system, everything, your respiration, your digestion, everything in your body. And what happens then, you're doing yourself other damage if you do drop your calories too low for too long. But aside from that, you're going to be deprived, you're going to be feeling deprived, and that leads to you cracking, that leads to you binging. So you might stick to 800 calories for lunch and dinner. Maybe you have a decent breakfast and say you get your calories up to 1300, 1200 calories per day, Monday to Friday. And then what happens the weekend? You have a few drinks, you go out for dinner, you have 3 courses, you have a big Sunday dinner, you have a fry, you have takeaways. Before you know it, that puts your average calories up over where you need to be, like we said. So that's another issue. An extreme reduction in calories is an issue. It can lead to binging, and that will lead you to putting your calories up over the average. Now, this can happen, of course, if you're preparing your own meals and doing your own thing and going on a diet, in inverted commas. Lots of people do that. That's a mistake 90% of people make whenever they come to me. They'll try and go less than the calories I recommend, and that is a problem. 9 times out of 10, that's a problem. Some people who are really, really determined, like say they were an ex-athlete, they will be able to do it for a little bit longer, but you should not be perpetually in a state of serious deprivation of calories. You will start feeling miserable, and you will just crack and grab that chocolate bar, and then another one, and then another one. And keeping in line with that, the next concern I have with meal plans is the fact I've already pointed it out, but there was one meal planning company or macro meal company that I came across that provided meals with pretty much the same amount of calories for a 120 kilo man as a 60 kilo woman. Now, before we get into any sexism debates, men typically burn more calories than women. It's just a fact of life. Blame biology, don't blame me. But 120 kilos of a man is going to burn a lot more energy, a lot more calories per day than a 60 kilogram woman. Now, you might argue that it's up to each person to decide themselves what they need to eat. Yes, I fully agree. But it's still very misleading if you're being told that this is a meal, this is a complete meal in itself on the packaging, on the labelling, but maybe you don't check the calories, and a lot of people don't, unfortunately. So again, 800 calories for lunch and dinner is simply not enough for most people, never mind a heavier individual or someone who is more active. So if you're very active doing weights, so you're trying to get slimmer but you're doing heavy training, you're doing training, running, cycling, swimming, doing whatever, you're going to need a lot more calories than 800 calories from 2 meals per day. So one size cannot fit all. I can't stress that enough. So that's another area that meal planning companies and macro meals fall down, in my opinion. There needs to be some sort of a range or a scale, to kind of show if you weigh this much, this is an appropriate meal for you. And I think that could be a clever marketing ploy. If anybody listening who owns a macro meal company, I think that would be another option for them. I think they would add value in a way by doing just a little bit of research for somebody, or saying, listen, if you want to lose weight and you weigh this is your one. Color code it. Do whatever you have to do to make it simple and easy for people. But just saying everybody needs this amount of calories. That's the NHS does that. The government does that. It's nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. So again, it's not something that's exclusively wrong with meal planning companies or macro meal companies, but it is something that you need to be aware of if you're considering delving into these, buying some of these, and using them as part of your diet. Now, I don't want you to go away thinking that I'm just slagging off meal planning companies, macro meal companies, and saying that they're terrible and that you should avoid them. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to give you a bit of a balance. So this is the balance. This is the good side of them. This is where I can see the benefit of them. They can be helpful if you're trying to kickstart something to see a little bit of progress, but they can also maybe encourage laziness and bad habits. Now, I've seen some great things happen in the short term when someone starts meal plans, that the weight literally walks off them. From one week to the next, the scales will go down. They'll inevitably begin to lose weight. They'll lose body fat at the start due to the reduction in their calorie intake from their main meals every day. If you're focused on that and you're paying a fiver per meal or whatever, you're going to be really more aware and more conscious of what you're actually putting into your body. Most people are anyway. But it does often grind to a sudden and sharp halt, and it makes you wonder why this is. There are numerous possibilities. One of them we have pointed out earlier on is you need more calories regularly. You can't just rely on 800 calories from 2 meals per day, because you will crack. The other one is your calorie needs will change as your body composition changes. So if you are a 120 kilo man and you are following you're counting your calories, you're not just following the meal plans, then you do need to actually pay attention to what your body needs as you lose weight, as your weight goes down, or if you get more active or less active. The other thing is, if core habits haven't changed, then meal plans will only get you so far. So if you still have the bad habits of going into the cookie jar, putting your hand in there and emptying it, then that is something that needs to be addressed. Meal plans, no matter how good or how tasty or how great the company is, they can only help so much. Those things need to be addressed. Those habits need to be changed or built on top of. And again, whenever you haven't got your meal plans with you, will you still make those poor choices? Will you get a takeaway? Will you choose something That's not a great option from the restaurant or for the cafe or from wherever it is you're eating out if you haven't got your meal plan with you or if you forget to order some week. The other thing is it might be liquid calories like alcohol that are actually your problem and not your food choices. So there's other things that need to be addressed. There's no point thinking that meal planning companies or macro meals are gonna solve all your problems. They might help you because let's face it, they're quick and easy. You can, heat them up or cook them 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Don't follow my cooking advice. Follow the packet obviously in case you get food poisoning. Disclaimer. But they're so easy. You don't have to think about what you're having. You know you're getting protein. You know you're getting certain things in it that your body needs. But as I said, they can be a helpful kickstart. They can be a good way to kind of get you started off, and even just to look at the meal plans and see, and look at the macros and see what's in them, what quantities of food are in them, and as your weight goes up or down, if you're monitoring that, then you will know if you need to adjust that, and maybe you could even make them yourself, and you could probably do a better job. You could make them more full of more flavors. You could do the flavors to suit yourself, suit your own tastes. You can make a big batch of them, freeze them, partition them up, put them into Tupperware, put them into bags or whatever, put them in the freezer and use them again. So it can be a good way to actually give you a good kickstart, but unless those habits are addressed, there's still going to be a little bit of laziness there, and there's going to be issues. You're not going to be making as much progress as you could long term. And I think I said already, but meal plans and macro meals, they can be a great option once in a while if you're in a rush. I grab some, not ready meals, not like it's pot noodles or things like that, but stir fries and things that have a good amount of protein in them. That's the main ingredient. They're excellent. They're really, really good if you're in a hurry, or say you're going to be home from work late, or you have to leave in a hurry in the evening and you need to throw some food in you. They can be a great option. Now, I don't want you to write them off and say that I'm writing them off, because I'm certainly not. If you're under pressure and you haven't the time to prepare, maybe the kids were sick, or maybe the kids are home late from school, or maybe they've got homework, or they've got things to go to and you're driving them around, they can be a really good option. They're quick and nutritious. There is good nutrition within them. And moving on then, the other thing is that they usually do provide a good amount of protein, vitamins, minerals, fibre. Why? Because they have the meat in them. They have chicken or they have beef, something like that in them, and then they also have vegetables. So you're going to get the basics covered. Now this, we're going to touch on this a little bit later, but this is one of the things that actually makes them effective, is a lack of carbohydrates. So there's generally not much starchy carbohydrates, so things like rice or potatoes. Now don't get me wrong, I'm generalizing here, so some of them do. Before you write in or complain and say this one here, you're completely wrong, and you dismiss everything I'm saying that there's quite a lot of them, and the reason they're successful is because they don't have starchy carbs. So what that means is if you're eating those long term, you're not going to be retaining as much glycogen, especially if you are training. So if you're doing heavy weight training, or you're running and you're depleting your glycogen stores, what happens? They're not getting replenished. That means you're not going to be storing as much water weight or as much glycogen, so your weight on the scales will go down. So if people are solely looking at the scales, it can seem like a miracle sometimes with these macro meals, but that's generally why, because a lot of them do not have starchy carbs in them. Now, you can add your own starchy carbs, you could add your own potatoes, you could add your own rice, you could add your own pasta if you wanted to, but you're getting the basics. Okay, you're getting your protein, your vitamins, minerals, and fibre, and those are really important. So protein and fibre from a weight perspective, a weight management perspective, are really important because they will help you stay full and satisfied, and they tend to be lower in calories than fats or starchy carbohydrates. So these are all important, not just for weight management, but optimal health if you're thinking of vitamins and minerals. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. I'm not here to tell you what to do, what to think, or what you should eat. I'm here to provide you with information. I'm here to provide you with some of my experience, my feedback, and my opinions on things. Now, you're not paying for this podcast, so you're free to dismiss it. You can't ask for your money back. You can't get your time back either, so I do appreciate you listening. But if you agree, great. If not, that's cool too. It really is up to you. Maybe you thought about these things for yourself. Maybe you've actually, you share some of my concerns, or maybe you disagree entirely. That's absolutely fine. Hopefully this has provided you with some thoughts to maybe make a better informed decision whenever it comes to, potential issues with macro meals. rather than simply saying, meal plans are bad or meal plans are good and making things so black and white, which society tends to like to do these days. Throw everything on the right side or the left side, throw everything on the good side or the bad side. Life's a little bit more complicated than that. I think we should really, really know that. And this is another one of those areas where, there's good points, there's bad points, there's pros and cons, there's drawbacks and benefits. So it seems much more sensible to critically evaluate them for yourself and see if you can use them in your lifestyles, use them if necessary, rather than becoming a slave to them or putting your full trust in them for your long-term weight management success. I would suggest weigh up all of these things and then decide for yourself. Cross-functional fitness, and there's lots of other reliable fitness and health and nutrition organisations that recognise the need for education, for coaching, and for building habits in order to help make informed decisions around food choices and assume control of your own nutrition habits for life. I'm just one of many, and hopefully this podcast is a way to actually get that message out there. Education is so important, and not just listening to what the trashy magazines tell you or what this nonsense story pops up on Facebook tells you. Actually listen to different opinions and decide for yourself. Look at the science yourself, look at the studies yourself, and don't just take other people's opinions. Don't just take my opinion. Look at them yourself and weigh the things in the balance yourself. See if it's right for you. A lot of people want to tell you have to eat this and you have to eat that, and that's what I was saying earlier about people like personal trainers. Some personal trainers will give you a meal plan and give you a complete diet sheet to the point where you're actually just eating six almonds per day with 10 raisins and then 250 milliliters of milk per day, and calling that a diet, or one apple or half an apple. Some ridiculous things. There's all sorts of things, but I'm not a fan of that. I think it's more beneficial if I can encourage you to take control of your diet, and I think that is a better method of coaching rather than just handing you resources or handing you set plans because they are so restrictive. So the other topic on today's podcast I wanted to discuss is some of the tricks of the trade, as it were, some of the secret arts when it comes to personal training that you might have seen the outside of, but I have seen behind the scenes, and I've chatted to people behind the scenes, and I know what goes on, which you might not be aware of. So I thought it'd be interesting to drop a few of these, just to either confirm your suspicions or to warn you about what is out there and what potentially can happen. Now, in the past, whenever I was younger and I was in my teens, I've been convinced, I've been duped by 8-week transformations, image manipulation, exaggerated claims, false testimonials, other tricks of the trade. I'm going to let you in some secrets that a lot of, I don't want to say top fitness industry professionals do, because there's a lot of top ones who are very reputable and who are very sound and very trustworthy. But there's some of them about, and again, I'm not going to name any names for obvious reasons, but you'll probably know yourself. First one is Photoshop and image manipulation. Everywhere you look, you can't have missed the crazy image manipulation that goes on. Now, there's some celebrities get caught out at this on Instagram. They'll see a shadow that's distorted, or you'll see something they've been trying to tweak it and it hasn't really worked out, and it makes them look quite silly. This isn't confined to the fitness industry alone. It is certainly one of the main proponents. It might not be full-blown Photoshop, but there are a host of sneaky tweaks that are performed to give you a false impression and leave you thinking, how do they get in that sort of shape? I can never look like that. And it can really get you down if you've been training hard and you've been doing it for several weeks, and this person seems to have done it in a quarter of the time, apparently. And you're right, you could never look like that, and I could never look like that. The fact is that they could never even look like that either. They let they use things like shadowing, saturation, sharpness, contrast, all this basic image manipulation that your Instagram filters will let you do. You can do it manually, and they'll use all these things to make the image as impressive as possible. Now, you might say that's not as bad as Photoshop, and the only difference really is that Photoshop allows you to do it more specifically in a lot more detail, and you have to pay a fortune for Photoshop unless you get a knockoff version of it. But the reason they don't tell you this is obvious. It's because it sells. They're trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you a product, a lifestyle, an image, a service, or whatever. But it is deceptive. It is deceiving, and it can really batter your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and even your trust in the process of training. So that's one to look out for. It's not always easy to spot. So I'm not saying go around accusing everybody of doing that if they're on Facebook or on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, but just be aware of it. The next thing to be aware of, we've all seen it in the shopping channels and even online on Facebook, advertising or popping up in Google or Amazon, but gimmick equipment. There's so many gimmicks now, more than ever. So many gimmicks. You've probably seen it yourself, or you maybe even been tempted to buy it yourself. It might be a vibration plate, a vibration belt, a sauna suit, or some ridiculous ab equipment. The world is just never short of crazy inventions that they claim to give you rock hard, visible, firm toned abs aided by the fitness model in the advertisement. So you'll see someone who's completely shredded and been deprived of carbohydrates for about 6 weeks, and has been training like a absolute hellion. Probably got a really good tan. Usually have a really good tan, don't they? That tightens the skin as well. But it's a fascinating phenomenon that people are more than willing to spend £100 or more, £1,000 on a latest piece of equipment that seems so plausible, instead of just doing what we know that we actually need to do at not extra cost. It might be a lot less in some cases, many cases. More and more, there's so many of them around now. There's a certain bike on the market at the minute that's going for thousands of pounds, and to be honest with you, it's probably no better or no worse than any other bike on the market if you're looking to do a bit of spinning. So I'm not so tempted to name it, but I think we know who we're talking about. But what do you really get from that? You could literally phone up your friends and do it apart if that's the case. I think it's become popular in the last year because people have been stuck in their houses, but again, I think it's a gimmick, and maybe the company will expand and maybe they will do better things, but it's just branding, isn't it? It's just they've made you think that it is worth that amount of money. It ain't. It ain't. Like there's a lot more. There's a lot of basic things that you can do that you're not doing that will get you the results and the progress that you're after. Just move more, move better, and practice better nutritional habits. The fitness industry, some estimate it's worth $80 billion. $80 billion. That's a lot of beans. But it's largely because companies do prey on people who want to change so desperately. Companies, the last who they go after, they try and target these people. I'm just telling you in this, don't fall for it. If it feels too easy, if it feels too simple, it's probably absolute nonsense. In fact, it's definitely nonsense. Okay, so that's another one to be aware of. Gimmick equipment. If you want to think about equipment, I've got a blog on the website about it, but start with a barbell. Get a barbell, get a rack, get a few plates, get a bench. That is as much as you need, and you can make incredible progress. Those are the basic pieces of equipment that gets 99.9% of people into whatever shape they want to be in. There's so many things you can do. Just focus on the basics and do them regularly. Next area is supplements. Needless supplements, I should say. It's the same stream of nonsense that comes in the supplement industry as it does from the gimmick equipment industry, and it's arguably even more dishonest. Within the fitness industry, it's potentially even more damaging. But they'll try and sell you things that you have absolutely no need for, unless you are a pro athlete. I think I said this before in the muscle building one and the fat loss one as well, maybe. But unless you are going to be a pro bodybuilder or a pro athlete, you don't need most of those supplements. Okay, you probably need a bit of protein powder, maybe some creatine, maybe some multivitamins, and that is it for most people. The supplement companies will convince you need every powder, pill, drink that they have, funnily enough, available, and using lots and lots of it seems like the more the better. That seems like plausibly reasoning. That seems like a good idea. While supplements, they do have their place. I'm not saying they don't. I've touched a little bit on supplements in previous episodes, but you do not need to spend your equivalent to your mortgage or your car payment to buy supplements. It's just crazy. The extent to which they make a difference in the grand scheme of things is really minimal. unless you're doing the basics like we said earlier, unless you're moving well and you're taking care of your 3 meals a day, eating well during those times, and you're not snacking on junk all the rest of the time, you probably don't need that many supplements, because it's only going to make a couple of percentage difference compared to those other things, which is 80% difference. And what they won't tell you is that your primary focus should be on your daily nutrition. Okay, they'll never really tell you that on the packaging or the adverts. Again, for obvious reasons, they're trying to sell a product. Why would they tell you that? Why would they give you good advice? What you're putting in your body throughout the day, through normal meals, through your breakfast, through your lunch, through your dinner, those are the things that will make the difference. Supplements are exactly that. They should supplement what you're doing the rest of the time. And there are some trainers, they like to push certain supplements, and funnily enough, they get a cut from it. They get a little bit of a slice of the cake, as it were. And I've never really been big into supplements or products or pushing anything on clients. I have a couple of things that I would recommend. One of them is a lacrosse ball for myofascial release. I think they're great. Those are fantastic. And again, protein powder. Now, I don't sell protein powder, but I do recommend it. I think it's great, and I think that most people can benefit from it to get their protein up to where it needs to be. Another really deceptive area is the transformation space. So I think we've all seen this at some stage. 6-week transformations, 8-week transformations. And transformation pictures can vary greatly, whether you believe them to be, an exercise in vanity or a remarkable measurement of someone's courage or hard work, dedication. It really depends on your personal opinion. So some people are kind of like, oh, that person there, always getting their guns out, always getting their abs out, does my head in, and that could be for a variety of reasons you have that response. Personally, I'm not really that comfortable taking client photos, and I don't ask for them, I don't require them, taking client photos of transformations, because I'm about a lot more than just what the physical is. So there's a lot more benefit to strength training and exercising than just what your body will look like, but more importantly how your body feels and how it is impacting your health and benefiting your health long term. So I'm not a big fan of transformations. I think that kind of gives the wrong focus for what cross-functional fitness is about, but some people like to do them, each to their own. But for me, the concerning aspect of transformation pictures and photos is the false belief or the hope and even the inevitable disappointment that it can lead to for some people. So you might look at somebody else's progress and say, oh, look at they did, that's incredible. And then you sign up to whoever's doing it because you think you're going to get the exact same results. Now, I know they've all got disclaimers saying your results may be different from these, but you're buying into that belief that you're going to look like that person that they've used in their picture. Now, as well as image manipulation that's already been discussed, before and after pictures, they're used usually to demonstrate transformations, and they make other subtle or not so subtle tweaks. Really, some of them are hilarious. I'm sorry, I lose it sometimes whenever I see them. So the first one, this is the typical setup, right? The first one, 12 weeks previous, they're really sad in it. They've got a sad face, their head's down, and then 12 weeks later or 8 weeks later, whatever it is, they're really happy. They've got a big smile on their face. And then the other one is they're really pale in the first one, 12 weeks ago. Next one, all of a sudden they've got a tan. They've been to the Bahamas. The rest of us are stuck in Ireland here, and they've been to the Bahamas. They've got a spray tan or something on. I don't know where it came from, but the other thing is the posture. So 12 weeks ago, round the shoulders, maybe let your tummy hang out there a little bit in the first one, and then the next one, standing tall, shoulders back, and then maybe abs are even peeking through in the next one. The other thing is, if you're a male, you're very, very hairy. They try to make hairy people, I think, seem more unattractive, which I have an issue with because I'm quite hairy. But the first one is very hairy. The second one, clean shaven, waxed. I don't know what they're using. Veet, who knows? But those are kind of the typical transformation pictures. I think you all have it in your mind. You've seen it all. Or maybe you haven't, but look out for it. You'll not be able to stop thinking about these things I've just said next time you see a transformation photo. But I do find them quite amusing sometimes. But one of the little known aspects of the transformation craze, it happens to come from the fact that you don't know anything about that person's background. So you just see the picture, you see the before, you see the after, you see the dates, and you know the ones who tend to make the cut for these pictures. There's two categories. So if you used to be an athlete, You used to be really strong. Maybe you played football, rugby, Gaelic, whatever you played. Maybe you just let yourself go. Maybe you're married now. Maybe you've went to uni and let yourself go. Whatever it is, you have tended to build up a lot of muscle mass during that time. Whenever you're playing your sport, whenever you're doing a bit of training previously, so you've retained some of it. As we said before, it doesn't all go away. You still retain some, more so than if you'd never done anything at all. So you've got that base underneath of muscle. So whenever it comes to a transformation, they are an ideal candidate, because what happens easier is for them, it's easier to get into a calorie deficit, to come back to a little bit of training. It's the whole muscle memory idea. There's a lot of confusion around that idea as well, but it's in the sense that we're thinking of, you basically have that training base, you have the technique, maybe you can deadlift, you can squat, you can bench press, you can do all the movements, and you've watched your calories. And as we noted before, it is easier to burn fat and to lose fat than it is to build muscle. It's significantly harder to build muscle. So if you've worked up 10 years building muscle, you're going to retain some of that regardless of how bad your diet, nutrition, lifestyle has turned. And then all of a sudden you start getting ripped again, you start getting cut. And they haven't just got off the couch after 10 years and made that progress. That's what I'm trying to say. The other side of it is someone who has been incredibly, say you're really obese, and you're another ideal candidate because you're going to lose weight an awful lot quicker. So you're going to start seeing the weight drop off faster than someone who's just a little bit. So if you're 120 kilos and you want to be 80 kilos, you should be 80 kilos for your height, your age and your activity level, then that's another thing that is going to benefit them. They're going to get you down below 100 kilos very, very quickly compared to someone who's 95 or 90 kilos trying to get the 80 kilos. That there's a lot less to lose that way. The other unknown side of it is water, carbs, sodium manipulation. It is possible to look much leaner whenever you time all of these components strategically without losing any body fat or losing that much body fat. So those are things to look out for. Those are things that go on under the surface that you're not aware of. You're not aware of anyone's training history. All you see is the photo, and they're powerful. It's easy marketing in many ways. I'm probably making life more difficult for myself by not doing before and afters, but I think the message is more important than the marketing. But one last word when it comes to this is, if you want to lose weight fast, it does come back fast and hard. So if you sign up for a transformation, chances are the person you see, oh look, they look great after 12 weeks, look at them, amazing. If you check in on the 16 weeks or 20 weeks, maybe even 6 months later, chances are they haven't changed any of their habits, they haven't changed any of their lifestyle details, things that are going on, and they'll all come back on again. Major calorie depletion always comes back to bite you. You can be sure of that. I've seen it over and over and over again. So another massive trend at the moment is Insta fitness influencers, and dishonesty amongst that. Instagram, it can be a blessing or a curse. I think I joined it about 7 years ago, maybe 2014 or something around that. And I just thought it was about taking nice pictures of scenery and things, but it's really changed since then. Now, it can inspire you, but it can also lead you down the garden path, get frustrated, get anxious and sadness, because you're constantly, whether you realise it or not, comparing yourself to images you see on Instagram if you are predisposed to think that way. So if you're not happy with your body, Instagram can be one of the worst places you can be and that you can go. In order to stay relevant with their followers who are interested, many fitness influencers on Instagram feel that they have to keep coming up with new, exciting, impressive exercise sequences and movements and techniques. And this is fine if their goal is to entertain you. There's a lot of entertainment on Instagram, don't get me wrong. Some really funny videos out there, mostly dog videos. What's not cool though is whenever the deception and dishonesty that's involved. That's not cool, that's not good, and it brings disrepute on the whole industry and the professionals who work within it, who are reputable. It kind of tarnishes them as well. So if they leave you thinking that they got into the shape that they did because they did this sequence, did this workout, did these random things that they show you in their videos, that is not true. It's simply not true. It's unlikely that they'll show you or mention the boring truth. The fact that it took them years and years, probably a decade for a lot of them, consistent hard training with weights and solid nutrition practices. They were doing the basics and they were doing them over and over again. They're probably doing them at least 3 times a week, maybe 5 or 6 times a week. Squatting, deadlifting, pressing, rowing, all of that. All the basics, again and again and again. But you're not going to watch that again and again and again on Instagram, are you? Of course not. It gets boring after a while watching people doing that. But That's why they're doing crazy movements, crazy things with dumbbells, flexing their arms this way, twisting their shoulders that way. It's to keep it interesting and to make, trying to reinvent the wheel, to keep you entertained, to keep you coming back, and to keep them getting paid more than likely. So they won't tell you the basics. They won't tell you the fact that they've trained with weights for 10 years to get into the incredible shape that they currently are. Once you're in that shape, it's a lot easier to stay in that shape. That's another thing they'll not tell you. If you climb the mountain, it's easier to kind of go along the plateau, as it were, rather than having to keep climbing. Okay, it's a lot easier whenever you're at the top of the mountain to stay there than to get back up to the top of the mountain again. So why don't they tell you this? Well, it's because, again, they want to sell. They want to sell things easily to you. They want to sell things quickly to you. You know, your attention span's short, like mine. 15 seconds is even a little bit too long. If it seems like they have some sort of new, innovative twist on exercise and they're, in good shape, it'll catch your attention and you automatically, but also erroneously, think that this is the golden ticket. So it's something to be aware of. Don't just keep jumping from program to program. Stick with something. Do the basics. Do them over and over again. Perfect them. Lift heavier progressively. We've chatted about all this stuff before, but a lot of influencers will not tell you that. So the last aspect I want to discuss regarding deception within the health and fitness industry is dumbing down. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a common trend, and it seems to be getting more and more common, that information is dumbed down. Now, I get it. You need a simple, straightforward message to get people hooked, to get people on board, to get people moving, to get just a little bit of a kickstart going. And that might be needed initially to allow people to get started with their exercise or nutrition. But it is really concerning whenever it never goes any further than this. There's a distinct lack of education provided for followers of some of the big slimming companies out there. Again, I'm reluctant to name names, but they've got more money than me, so they probably could end my life if they if they hear this. But I'm not going to name names. You know who they are. I know who they are. What happens is whenever they do not give you information and they don't give you any education, this can easily give you the impression that if you just blindly follow the leader's advice, you'll achieve the goal that you want to achieve. If you just do what they say, it's kind of like what the government's getting on these days. Just do as we say, everything will be fine. There. It's rocking you back and forth, putting you to sleep. It's a bit like that. If you're in one of these weekly groups, you meet up, you weigh in. Why is my weight not coming down? Why have I stalled? Calorie deficit. Just, you need someone shouting that in the background, but no, just keep following the plan. Keep following the plan. Now the problem is the leaders they've come through the program themselves, and they aren't really that well educated themselves. A lot of time when it comes to nutrition, they only realize and they recognize the language of sins. Oops, I said too much. Have to give it away. That's a big problem. There's some companies are better than others, obviously, but if they're not talking about calories, they're not discussing energy balance, and they're trying to tell you that a crushed up banana is detrimental to your weight compared to a whole banana. I would run a mile, because it's just not true. It's just not true. So if you follow the leader's advice, there's a problem with that. Unless you're why are you not allowed to ask questions? Ask loads of questions. If you're in one of these groups right now and you're listening to that, ask loads of questions. They'll love it. Believe me, that's what they want. They want you to ask lots and lots of questions and really put them on the spot. I guarantee you they'll love it. I know I love it. I love whenever clients ask me questions, because it gives us a chance to discuss something and for them to learn something, or just to try and think about things a little bit more deeply. Or if I don't know the answer, I'll go away and try and find it out for them. But hopefully you're a leader if you're in one of these cults. Slimming groups. If you're in one of them, hopefully that they will love the questions as well. Now, I just think continuing education is so important. It's so important because you never know it all. What I know now, after doing this for, studying nutrition and fitness for over 15 years now, I just realize, you realize more and more just how little you know and how much more there is to know, and how quickly things change, how things you thought you knew 10 years ago aren't as they appeared back then. So continuing education is so important. It provides the reason and rationale behind why you should make a change. Why is a banana, when it's crushed up, more detrimental to my weight than whenever it's whole? Why? I really would love to. Why were Muller yogurts, why were they good a few years ago, but then whenever the funding kind of stopped and the sponsorship stopped. They're bad now. There's sins in them. Very peculiar. I don't know. Maybe you're a better detective than I am, but I'm lost for ideas. I have no idea why that would be. But you get what I'm saying? Why do you need to make this change? Why do you need to squat this way? Why do you need to eat protein? Why do you need to eat fiber? Ask the why. Why is an incredibly strong motivator. Whenever you get that dawning moment, whenever it goes, why am I doing this? If you lose your why, forget about it. You're finished. It also empowers you to take control of your nutrition and your exercise yourself, instead of relying on someone else for the rest of your life. So if you're relying on somebody for your nutrition and to try and help you with your nutrition, you don't want to be a slave to that process or that person or that industry or that business. You want to make sure that you are self-sufficient, like we chatted about in a previous episode. It also aids you if you're sticking with a commitment that you've made because you have a reason why you should do it. So if you've made a commitment, you can keep reverting back to that why, to keep reminding yourself of that why, and to keep yourself motivated. So we're going to finish up with what can you do about it. You might have listened to this and thought that everyone's out to get you. That's not true. There's a lot of reputable people out there. I'm highlighting the bottom 1%. Okay, the bottom but prominent 1% of companies or trainers or businesses out there who are trying to dupe you, who are trying to pull the wool over your eyes and take your hard-earned cash. If you want to avoid being duped, keep asking questions. Ask questions of your leader. If you're in one of those cults, nutrition, slimming groups. If you're in one of those, or if you've got a personal trainer, ask questions. Ask why. Find sources that you can trust, and look at the studies yourself. Like I said earlier, look at what the big picture is saying. Don't just take this one isolated study that the Daily Mail has put in front of you. Try and think of the big picture. There's a new thing in the Daily Mail every week or every day about how this gives you cancer and that thing gives you cancer, and this is good for slimming, and that thing's bad for slimming. You got to look at the big picture, especially when it comes to nutrition, because nutrition is quite a new science. It's a developing science, and it's one that there's very few things settled in it. There's very few things that you can categorically say this is the way it is, because different people react differently to different nutrients. So that's another thing. Look at the big picture. Like get some good sources, find good sources, and listen to what they're saying. Listen to a variety of sources, and then come to an educated understanding of where things are, what things actually look like, rather than what an influencer on Instagram or somebody has told you they are. And then if something sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't true. It's most likely 100% a lie. And if something sounds like a shortcut, if it sounds like, get that body shape in 6 weeks, it's probably not going to happen for you. It might happen for somebody else, but if you are not exposed to exercise before and you've no training history and you've never any interest in fitness or sports or anything like that, it's probably not going to happen to you like it happened for them. And if it happens too quickly, if it is a shortcut, it's not going to lead to lasting changes. If it doesn't involve some form of little bit of pain in the process, whether that is from doing tough training or from just changing some of those nutritional habits that you've built up, like a bicky with your tea or a packet of biscuits, if you're some people, including myself sometimes. If you are someone who does that, maybe you just need to go cold turkey in the biscuits. Okay, maybe there's a little bit of pain that needs to be endured to get past that and get to where you want to be. So if it sounds like a shortcut, it's probably not going to last, and it's probably not worth following. So now it's time for our News of the Week segment. I haven't done this for a couple of weeks because the shows have been so long. I've tried to keep them to a minimum, so I've had to cut this segment out. But this week we're back with a new one from The Guardian, and it's on the 15th of July 2021. And you can look this up online. You'll probably see it in the news actually, or hear about it in the news over the next day or two. But the title of it is Food Strategy Calls for £3 billion Sugar and Salt Tax to Improve UK's Diet. The report says changes in eating habits must be accelerated to meet targets on health and climate. Now, if you listen to podcast a few weeks ago, it was the one on taking personal responsibility and trying to take responsibility for your own health, your own fitness, and your own decision making, basically and you'll probably know where I'm going to come from on this one, but I'm not a fan of government dictating or meddling or trying to force you to eat this or eat that or do this or do that on their account because they say so. I think everybody should have the choice to take whatever they want. If you are so predisposed to wanting to eat 15 curly whirlies per day, that's entirely up to you. If you're a child, your parents maybe need to have a word with you. If you're an adult, your parents probably need to have a word with you, but it's not the best thing for you. But if you want to do that, I think it's nice to have the option, isn't it? It's nice to not have it illegal or having to pay an extortionate amount to have to, to be able to have that luxury of doing it. But really what this is going to do, obviously they want to raise money, I get that. The government always wants to milk its population when necessary and turn into a beef cow if necessary as well. But this is really going to hit the most squeezed demographic already, those who aren't earning as much. Put it this way, if you're really well off, if you're worth a lot of money, you've got a nice income, if food prices go up, which they have already this year because of inflation, because of government decisions made last year, again, unintended consequences, trying to make things better, making things worse, food prices have gone up. Now, if you are really well off and food prices go up, it doesn't really make a button of difference. You don't really notice that much. I mean, a lot of people are so out of touch with what food prices are, what the price of a loaf of bread, 2 litres of milk or whatever, a pint of milk, that it doesn't bother them if food prices go up by a few pounds or a few pence in their weekly shop. But for some people, if they're not earning as much, that's going to have a big knock-on effect on them. So if you're a politician or high earner, you can probably just pay yourself a little bit more as well if you own a company or you are a politician and you like giving yourself pay rises every few months, it seems. Then that takes care of the extra sugar and salt tax, and they can continue to live an unhealthy diet if that's what they want to do. Don't mean to cast aspersions or generalizations, but politicians generally don't really care about their own health or their fitness or their nutrition. Have you met politicians? Are there any politicians listening? If there are, I'd love to hear from you and prove me wrong. There might be the odd one, but they are the exception to the rule, shall we say. I'm quite happy to make that generalisation. The other thing is the whole climate argument. I don't want to get in a soapbox, but it really doesn't wash. So see if you can explain this logic to me. So in order to meet the carbon targets that they have set for themselves in this country alone, they're basically determined to curb local farmers. They're trying to push local farmers out of farming, out of the industry, generational industry, just so they can plant more trees to absorb carbon to help meet their carbon targets. But in the meantime, they're going to ship in products and produce from elsewhere, like whether it's plant-based or not, whether it's lambs from New Zealand or whether it's beef from Argentina. They're going to be shipping in other things like avocados and almonds from California. Those things do not grow here. And, that's going to be a lot of carbon. So, what is the point? What is the point in trying? Well, I know the point is they're trying to tick a box. They're trying to make themselves feel like they have achieved something significant, when in reality, they've just moved the goalposts. They've just they've tried to fiddle the books, if you want to think of it that way. So, I'm just not a fan of it. Now, at the bottom here, during the article, actually, there's a funny paragraph. It says, the strategy rules out a meat tax, which proved much more unpopular in a survey than the salt and sugar taxes, calling it politically impossible. I think that's short for, we're not going to get re-elected if we put this through. And in this day and age, you have to be pretty bad to not get re-elected these days. I don't think any more is to be said there. And then it goes on to say, instead, it suggests nudging consumers away from meat, such as by putting veggie sausages alongside meat ones, which is known to push sales up. No wonder it pushes sales up. People are buying it and they're not knowing what they're buying. Imagine how I'd be raging if I went to the shop and tried to buy some sausages and I came home with vegetable sausages. Imagine my face. I would be so annoyed. But that's deception. Surely trading standards would have to get onto that, and you have to be aware of what you're buying. You can't pretend. You can't put it in the vegetable section. Maybe that'd be a better option. But no, they're trying to get people to eat more vegetables and less meat. They have to try and do it by deception, I guess. It's just ridiculous. So, it says it also backs plant-based meats as replacements in processed foods. That's like me pretending to be a giraffe and putting on a giraffe costume and going about, and I'm not a giraffe. I'm a human. It's ridiculous. If it's meat, call it meat. If it's plants, call it plants. If it's vegetables, call them vegetables. But surely trading standards and consumer ethics come into this. It's absolutely preposterous. So let me know what you think. Do you think that a salt and sugar tax is a good idea? Personally, I do think it's a good thing if people eat less salt and less sugar overall in this country, but I just think government initiatives are the absolute worst way to go about this. I think education is a much better way to go about it, and there is a part at the bottom of this that actually says that they are trying to launch an initiative called Eat and Learn Initiative for schools involving food lessons and the reintroduction of food A levels to help renew declining culinary skills across every social class. It's time to take food education seriously, the strategy says. Now that seems a good idea. The only problem again is that there's the government carrying it out, and going by the government's other nutritional advice that is on offer, I don't have high hopes. But let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you have any complaints, if you have any feedback, if you disagree. I would love to hear from you. Okay, it's time for Joke of the Week, everybody's favourite. This one's really good. I got this one. This was from Google, so that's how you know it's good. Google said it. Must be funny. Computers tell you what's funny these days. Why did the Scarecrow keep getting promoted? Because he was outstanding in his field. Yes. Yeah. Please come back next week. That is it for another week. Thank you so much for joining me and for listening and giving me your time. Really appreciate it. If you do have any feedback, if you have any comments to make, do send them in to info@crossfunctionfitness.co.uk, or you have any questions that you would like answered in the next show or two, do send them in. If you have any topics you'd like covered in upcoming shows, do let me know that as well, and I'll see what I can do. Hopefully today's show has made you more aware of some of the unscrupulous methods that are used in the fitness industry. Some of them bigger belief, but hopefully you're aware of them now and you can spot them a mile off, and hopefully you're more aware of now what to choose when it comes to macro meals and meal plans and making smart decisions around that. Have a great weekend, whatever you're up to, and I will catch you again next Friday. Don't forget, train today so you can be stronger tomorrow. Have a good one.